God, you have searched us. You know us. You know what we do. You know what we carry into this place as burden or worry or weight. You know what we're thinking ahead to next week. We ask now that you center ourselves. You help center us on your word. You clear our heart of all that other stuff. You let us focus in this moment. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. This is one, as we turn to Luke's Gospel, chapter 10, that you can put yourself there. We did a little work in Sunday school called Lectio Divina, where you just read a text over and over again, and you consider not your interpretation of it, but what phrase or word, what rises to the top for you at this time when you read it. And I invite you to do that too as you listen to this, or maybe as you play out the scene in your mind, what do you see or hear or sense in this moment? Verse 38 begins, as Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. You know, Luke, the gospel writer Luke, is one of our most descriptive gospel writers. He, more than Matthew or Mark or John, describe events. He puts things in place in history. He tells us who the leaders were. He gives us more details than a lot. But he missed something here, not to critique too much. But he missed something, I think, that was going on. Because he makes no mention in this moment of the audible sound of the clanging pans and the cabinet doors being opened and shut just loud enough, you know, for Mary and Jesus to hear over in the other room. Because you know that had to have been going on. Because you know how it goes. Sister Mary is over there with the guests, and Martha's left in the kitchen on her own. She's getting it done all right. This is what she does well, and don't forget either that this is her house that is being opened up. Mary was a guest as well as Jesus, but also sister, right? She's letting it be known, though, that she's doing it. The clanging was a little louder than normal, a little more audible. The cabinet door was shut just a little bit harder than usual. Yeah, I got it. Don't worry. But what was her breaking point? Because people, I think, like Martha, they can tolerate a lot because they're always the ones kind of doing it. So they have a high tolerance point. But I imagine, and this is my imagination, as she's within earshot or sight of Jesus and Mary, that there she is sitting with Jesus, and Mary says something like, wow, to something that Jesus said, opened up her mind. And not only now is she working away, but she's also missing these moments of what's going on, and I think maybe that's her tipping point. So finally she reaches it, and she needs what we all need a little bit of, and that's justice in the moment, right? She seeks it out. And then Jesus shows her again, as she seeks out this justice, that he is an essentialist to the core. Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. One thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the better part. It won't be taken from her. So that's it. That's the point of this sermon, right? We need more Mary and less Martha in this world, right? You've heard it before. There's a book out there, and I think some of you have even read it or maybe done a study. Being like Mary in a Martha world or something like that. That's the point of this lesson. But I don't think it's so simple. I don't. I think it's amateurish just to take this text and say just that. Because I think perhaps we're going to find that there's maybe a third way. Not Mary, not Martha. Third way too. But first, you saw the sermon title, the one that I couldn't think of a week ago, standing up here. It's about that email. Okay, now comes to the interaction time of the sermon. Are you ready? I need some volunteers, and you kind of have to be emboldened. I'm going to let you know that I'm going to share my number too, okay? First, we need to get a little population. Raise your hand if you have your smartphone with you right now. Just be honest. Okay, right, yeah. That's okay. I have mine in my pocket too. Raise your hand if you get your email on said smartphone. So now we might start. Okay, that's pretty almost the same amount of people. We're going to have a little contest. We're going to see how many unchecked emails. So pull it out if you want to play along. Pull it out. We're going to see how many unchecked emails some of us have on our account sitting in our pocket here. Okay, so I'll give you a moment. I'm going to get mine to you. I'm not going to share first, but I'll share. I'm waiting for somebody else to do that. So open up the old Yahoo Mail. And this can be work or personal. It's thinking. All right, anyone willing to share? Chris?
10.
10! That's amazing. 1 unread email.
3.
12. 260. Yeah, the shot.
3.
32. What? 3. Who are you people? Yeah. What?
You're jumping in.
What? 6.
28.
28. 35. I have 749. Is Suzanne in here? But I mean, here's the top Nebraska Furniture Mart advertisement, Tiffany and Company, BookBub, Under Armour, Lowe's Home Improvement. You know, what's the point of checking those, opening those up? So, what's this all, what does email have to do with anything here, Pastor Lane? Tish Harrison Warren lifts up email in particular when it comes to work. That's what we're talking about is work. Because she loathes it, hates it. She is shamed about how many she gets. She talks about the 4-year-old Groupon thing that's still sitting in there, right, unchecked. How overwhelming it makes her feel. How sometimes it feels like that's all she does in a given day is check email and answer email, and check email and answer email. So, because the whole point of this book is that God is present everywhere, right? That's the whole point. God is present everywhere in our days. God is present in our work too. Is God really present there in these unchecked or time spent on email? For her. We pick email because I think for so many of us, it represents a lot about our work life. Email and work life go hand in hand. If you don't get work email on your phone, which some do, I would ask, do you dread what awaits you maybe tomorrow morning when you go in and sit in front of this glowing screen for the first time on Monday morning? Do you feel this dread in your stomach? What crisis is there? If you do get work email on your phone, are you tempted to check in just to see how things are going of the evening, you know, after dinner, before bed, when I wake up in the morning? Some of us have a second computer screen, I know. We got these 2 screens sitting in front of us at work. And sometimes one of them is dedicated only to email, right? It's email up all the time. So that way you have an instantaneous Question, and you can give an instantaneous answer, right? No time to waste. As this chapter is about email, it is about the work we do with our lives. The subheading of it all, the worshipful part of it, is being blessed and sent. Okay? As in, when we leave worship today, as we do every Sunday, we are blessed as we gather. We're blessed by God as this community in worship. And then we are sent out into the world to do, period. Right? To do whatever it is that we do. So the truth is that many of us here are sent out to full-time or part-time jobs. We're sent out to be dads and moms. Some of you are retired. You have earned sabbatical from daily work, right? But you're still sent out to go and to be and to do, even if you don't have a punch-the-clock job. You are blessed here. You are sent there. This is the perfect subject, actually, I think, for the first Sunday in Lent, as it is. Because it helps remind us that Lent calls us out. We were called out on Wednesday, those of you who were here, to a new way of living, a new kind of commitment as we marked our foreheads with ashes. We are people marked with ash, whether you physically are or not. We are this Lent. Lent does not literally call us, though, to go and quit doing what we do, quit our day job, as it were, and to just go serve the Lord all day long without, doing what we do. But we are marked people. We are people of Lent within what we do. So the question is, have we separated somehow church life and work life? Are those two different things? Warren writes that there is no competition between the work we do as people gathered in worship. Liturgy, the word liturgy literally means work of the people. So there's no competition between what we do in worship and our vocations in the world. For believers, these two intrinsically are part of one another. They're not divided out. That means, while some may act it, sometimes we do, sometimes it may be tempting, you are not two or more different people or identities in this world, depending on whether you're at work or whether you're at church or whether you're home. You are not your Sunday best, put on a tie, so-and-so, and then you go be corporate such and such. Two different people. As followers of Christ, you are one and only one. You have but one identity. Not multiple identities. One identity. Whether you're here or at work. One of my passions has become thinking a lot about identity and identity work, the work of identity as a Christian. I've been asked in a few months to present at a Synod leadership gathering of Minnesota about ministering to millennials. Okay? I think I'm still fascinating people that I'm the youngest guy or gal in our presbytery. And I'm still that. So we're like the unicorns, millennials, right? Every church wants them, right? But they can't grasp them, they can't understand them, they don't know what to do with them when they get them. So my thought is, well, if we figure out how to minister to them, that's kind of attractive, right? And it, I guess, helps that I am one. So anyway, one of my focus points when I'm thinking about how to minister to millennials will be seeking and finding identity. Identity work in a world that seeks hard to make up identities for us, or to ask us to be a different identity over here than we are over here. Now, this truth seeking is not only for millennials either. It's not. I think there's different, but it's for everyone. Being a Christian in our daily work has taken on different forms through the centuries as times have changed, right? It has looked different what it means to be blessed and sent out into the world now than it did 100 years ago, than it did 200 years ago, than it did 500 years ago at the Reformation. What we do has changed with our work. But we must understand from where we came from, and what I mean from where we came from, we Reformed Protestant people from the Reformation did as we revolutionized the thought of vocation and work. I want to read a paragraph to you that brings this home. She writes that we often understand the Protestant Reformation as a conflict about doctrine, right? The Reformers were caught up on justification, on grace versus works, on ecclesiology, on indulgences, and it was about all of those. But what captured the imagination of the commoners in Europe during the Reformation was not only the finer points of doctrine, those things, but the earthly notion of vocation. The idea that all good work is holy work. All good work is holy work. That idea was revolutionary. The Reformation toppled this vocational hierarchy that had placed monks, nuns, and priests at the top and everyone else below. The Reformers taught that a farmer may worship God by being a good farmer, and that a parent changing diapers could be as near to Jesus as the Pope. And this was a scandal. And it was. It all matters. It all matters to God. But the Christian faith teaches that all work that is not immoral, that is not unethical, all work is part of God's kingdom mission. All of it. It all matters. So we meet here each week and then we scatter to go and to be. Now, it's not in these idealistic, it's not like sending the 72 out where we're going from town to town and our only mission is to evangelize, right? We're not just sent out to countries far and wide from here, but we are sent out into our lives right now. Our work, our jobs, our career, our homes. And it all matters. All of it. The pointless stuff, the mindless stuff, the bothersome stuff about work. It all matters. And about that email inbox, right? She does write in truth that many of us feel, I think, about their, as some aspects of their work. It may be email for you. Substitute what it may be for you if it's not. She writes, it's easy for me to assume that the parts of my vocation that God cares about are the parts that I like, right? That's what God cares about. The rest is the dross and the doldrums of groaning and unnecessary evils. Luther said, God himself will milk the cows through him whose vocation it is. But could God himself really check email through me? Could he balance the family budget and fold the laundry through me? Could he fill out bureaucratic work forms through me? Does he care about any of this? The answer is yes. It all matters to God. It all matters. Now, could some of how we work use a bit of a reformation? I think goodness yes is the answer. Because let us not forget, reformation, reformation, that is always God's goal in everything. To get better and better and better. Isaiah 65 that Lloydette read paints the picture of reformation on this godly scale. The new, brand new Jerusalem of the someday. That's the biggest reformation, right? A new Jerusalem for a currently scattered people of Israel. This hope of how it will be one day. And in the midst of this painting, really of perfection, this perfect place, is that they will not labor in vain, but that they will still work and still create wonderful things for them and their family. The handiwork of their hands, it says. Work is a part of the new paradise. But it's great work that we're after. God is about reformation. And God yearns for reformation in your life too now. It makes sense that would start in your life now in no other place really than where we spend most of our week, most of our lives. While it may sound elementary, I assure you that it's not. That the spirit of which we approach and accomplish our work, no matter what it is, our daily tasks, that matters greatly to our productivity, and that matters greatly to our quality of life, and it matters greatly to God. Now the buffers, the realistic buffers that many of us have to put in to our lives are the disciplines that it takes. And this is harder now than it ever has been before. To not make our work our identity in this life. To not think about it all the time. To not be, to put it in the context of the story, when Jesus is literally sitting in the room next to you, he's there. To not be worried and distracted by many things. And when it comes to work, many of us are worried and distracted by many things. That discipline piece is that for many of us it takes much more discipline to actually sit back and to take a moment, or to go for a walk, or to go visit a coworker who you know is struggling a little bit, than to just keep plowing through our inbox, right? To complete it. We are worried and distracted by many things. Now about that third way I was telling you about. We've covered Martha plenty, right? She's always pinned the workaholic. Caught up in the task in the kitchen, she's worried and distracted. That was her mistake in that moment. Jesus was right there. It is easy to be anxious and exhausted so much that you miss the greater thing. Now on the other end of that spectrum, from workaholic over here, is you have the fully escape into contemplative thought and idealism, right? The contemplatives among us. So let me tell you, many pastors, and I'm one of them, this is the ideal over here. Some weeks I wish I could just study and meditate and pray and read and write and just totally be in a silent place with my God. This ideal itself, though, that one is a burden, too. Because that's not how life works. It's not. I don't know everything about you, but I don't think any of us here are monastics. Am I right about that? Any monastics? I have a family. As a pastor, I am called to be in relationship with you. Not just all by myself and God. So Warren then calls for a third way. That is neither this frantic activity of Martha, but it's not the full contemplative stuff of Mary. A realistic way in our workaday world. The third way is marked by freedom from compulsion and anxiety because it is rooted in this thing we call benediction. God's blessing and love to you. But it also actively embraces God's mission into the world which we are sent, and that is our common workplace. She writes, living a third way of work where we seek vocational holiness in and through our work, even as we resist the idolatry of work and accomplishment, allows us to live with work as a form of prayer. And it can be that. As we begin a Lenten season, let us take up perhaps, this is the challenge of your life, maybe this third way of working. Examine the spirit in which you do things. Examine what needs a reformation in your work life and day. And do not forget that God is present in all of it. You are blessed. You are sent out for work. May it not be in vain, but may you love your handiwork. Next week, sitting in traffic. Until then, I proclaim this in the name of the Father, Son,